When did my backup plan become my first choice? I had 37 missed calls when my phone finally got service again. 37. All from my fiancé Derek, all within a 3-hour window, all while I was stuck on a mountain trail with a sprained ankle and my backup wedding date, Miles. Miles, who I'd invited to my wedding planning appointments only because Derek was always too busy. Miles, who'd agreed to be my just-in-case person if something went wrong. Miles, who was currently fashioning a splint out of hiking poles and his jacket while Derek's calls went unanswered in my pocket. "This is going to hurt," Miles said, kneeling beside me on the rocky trail. His hands were gentle despite the warning, carefully positioning my swollen ankle. "But we need to stabilize it before we try to get you down." I nodded, gritting my teeth as he worked. We were 2 miles from the trailhead, and the sun was starting to set. I'd twisted my ankle on loose rocks about an hour ago, and my phone had no service until 5 minutes ago when we'd climbed high enough to catch a signal. "I should call Derek back," I said, watching my phone light up with another incoming call. "He's probably worried." Miles didn't look up from securing the makeshift splint. "He's called 37 times in 3 hours. That's not worried. That's something else." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing." But his jaw was tight. "Just maybe stabilize your ankle before you deal with whatever that is." My phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. I answered this time. "Derek, I'm okay. My ankle is—" "Where the hell have you been?" His voice was sharp, angry. "I've been calling for hours." "Hours, Kira. I told you this morning I was going hiking. My phone didn't have service until just now. You said you'd be back by 3. It's after 6. I looked at Miles, who was pointedly focusing on my ankle and pretending not to listen. "I had an accident. I sprained my ankle pretty badly and we had to—" "We? You're with someone?" Derek's tone changed. "Who's we?" "Miles came with me. I told you that this morning too." The silence on the other end was heavy. "You're on a mountain with Miles. The same Miles who's been hanging around you for months. He's my friend, Derek. You know that. Your friend who you invited to cake tastings and venue tours and dress fittings because apparently I'm too busy to do my own wedding planning." There was accusation in his voice that I didn't understand. "You said you were too busy. You said you trusted me to handle the details. And you decided to handle them with another man." Miles finished with my ankle and stood up, walking a few feet away to give me privacy. But I could see tension in his shoulders. "Derek, I'm hurt and I'm stuck on a mountain and I really don't want to have this argument right now. When do you want to have it? When's a good time for you, Kira? Because apparently I can never find a good time to do anything with you since you're always making plans with Miles." My ankle throbbed and I felt tears starting. "That's not fair. You canceled on me 5 times last month. 5 times I had appointments scheduled and you said work came up. Because work does come up. Because I have a demanding job that pays for the life you want us to have. I never asked you to—" I stopped because this was an old argument, worn smooth with repetition. "Look, can we talk about this later? Right now, I need to figure out how to get off this mountain. Let Miles figure it out. He seems good at taking care of you." Derek hung up. I stared at my phone, the anger in his voice echoing. Miles came back over and sat down beside me, careful not to jostle my ankle. "Everything okay?" "He's mad that I'm here with you." "Yeah, I gathered that." Miles was quiet for a moment. "For what it's worth, I can head back down and send proper help. You don't need me making things worse with your fiancé. Don't be ridiculous. You're not leaving me alone on a mountain." "Kira, if my being here is causing problems, your being here is the only reason I'm not panicking right now." The words came out sharper than I intended. "You're the one who knew how to splint my ankle. You're the one who stayed calm when I was freaking out. You're the one who's actually here." Miles looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "He should be the one who's here." "Well, he's not. He's never here. That's why you've been my backup plan for everything." I laughed, but it sounded bitter. The backup wedding date who actually shows up to wedding planning. How pathetic is that? It's not pathetic. It is. I'm getting married in 3 months and my fiancé can't be bothered to help plan our own wedding. But my friend drops everything every time I ask, and I never even questioned why that felt normal. I looked at Miles, really looked at him. He'd taken a day off work for this hike because I'd mentioned being stressed about wedding planning and needing to clear my head. Derek hadn't even remembered I was going hiking. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for always being my backup plan. Anytime." But something in his voice sounded sad. We sat in silence while the sun continued its descent. Miles had a headlamp in his pack and he set it up, creating a circle of light around us. "We should probably try to move soon," he said, "before it gets completely dark. Can you stand if I support you?" I tried with his help, but the moment I put any weight on my ankle, pain shot up my legs so intensely I gasped. Miles caught me before I fell. "Okay, new plan. I'm going to carry you." "Miles, it's 2 miles. You can't carry me 2 miles. Watch me." He was already positioning himself. "Climb on my back, piggyback style." "This is insane. This is happening. Come on." I climbed onto his back, my arms around his shoulders, and he stood up with a grunt. "You're stronger than you look," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "I've been working out." He started walking, his pace slow but steady. Figured I should be in good shape for all this backup plan duty. We made it maybe a 1/4 mile before he needed his first rest. He set me down on a fallen log and stretched his back. "You okay?" I asked. "Fine. Just pacing myself." He drank some water from his pack. "How's your ankle?" Hurts, but the splint is helping. I watched him in the headlamp glow. His hair was damp with sweat despite the cooling evening air. His shirt had dirt on it from where he'd knelt beside me on the trail. You know you don't have to do this, right? We could call for actual rescue services. And wait how long? 2 hours? 3? By then it'll be pitch black and you'll be freezing. He sat down beside me. Besides, what kind of backup plan would I be if I called for backup? Miles? Yeah? I wanted to say something, but I didn't know what. Thank you, I'm sorry. Why do you keep showing up for someone who's marrying someone else? Instead, I said, Derek's going to be really mad about this. Why? Because I'm helping you? Because you're always helping me. Because I call you first when I need something. Because I trailed off, and Miles finished the sentence. Because he knows what that means. What does it mean? The question hung in the air between us. Miles looked at me for a long moment, then stood up. Come on, let's get you off this mountain before we start asking questions we're not ready to answer. The second quarter mile was harder. Miles was breathing heavily, stopping more frequently. My guilt was growing with every step. Miles, this is too much. Let me try to walk again. Your ankle is sprained, possibly fractured. You're not walking. You're going to hurt yourself. I'm fine. But he wasn't fine. I could feel him struggling, feel the tremor in his arms as he adjusted his grip. Miles, stop. Please stop. He set me down and I could see he was exhausted. I can't let you hurt yourself for me. I'm not hurt. I'm just... He bent over, hands on his knees, breathing hard. Okay, I might need a longer break. We sat on the trail in the circle of headlamp light, and I heard him try to hide how heavily he was breathing. This is my fault, I said. I'm the one who insisted on taking the advanced trail. I agreed to it, because I wanted to prove something. I wanted to prove I could do something challenging and fun without Derek, that I didn't need him for everything. I laughed bitterly. And instead, I proved I need you for everything. You don't need me for everything. Don't I? You've been to more wedding appointments than my actual fiancé. You helped me pick out flowers, you taste-tested 3 different caterers, you sat through 4 hours of string quartet auditions. You've basically planned my entire wedding. Miles was quiet. And you never once questioned why I kept asking you. I continued. Why I kept inviting you to things that should have been for me and Derek. Why you became my default person. I questioned it, Miles said quietly. Every single time. Then why did you keep coming? Because you asked me to. He finally looked at me. Because every time you called, I thought maybe this would be the time you'd realize what I've known for the past year. My heart started beating faster. What have you known? That you're marrying the wrong person. The words hung between us like a confession. Miles, let me finish. Please. He took a breath. You're marrying someone who doesn't show up for you. Who doesn't prioritize you. Who makes you feel like you're asking too much when you want him to be involved in planning your own wedding. And you've been making excuses for him for so long that you don't even realize it's not normal. That's not fair. Derek has a demanding job. So do I. So do you. That's not an excuse. Miles's voice was gentle but firm. Kira, in the past 6 months, how many times has Derek canceled on you? I tried to count and lost track. A few times. It's been 15 times. I know because I was your backup plan for 14 of them. The number hit me like a slap. 15 times. Derek had canceled on me 15 times in 6 months, and I'd gotten so used to it that I'd stopped even feeling disappointed. The 15th time? I asked. You couldn't come? I was in the hospital with my dad after his heart attack, and you told me it was fine, you'd go alone, and you did. You went to meet with the photographer alone because Derek canceled again and I wasn't available. Miles's voice cracked slightly. And I felt terrible because I knew you shouldn't have to do that alone. I remembered that day. Derek had texted me an hour before we were supposed to meet the photographer, saying something had come up at work. I'd called Miles and he'd been at the hospital. I told him it was fine, that I'd handle it, but I'd cried in my car before the appointment because I felt so alone. I didn't know you felt bad about that. I felt terrible. Because I knew I was the only person who would have shown up for you, and I couldn't. And you didn't even consider calling Derek back and asking him to actually keep his commitment. He had to work. Did he? Or did he just know you wouldn't push back? That you'd accept whatever excuse he gave? That you'd find another way to handle it? I didn't have an answer for that. Miles started to stand, then winced and sat back down hard. Miles? I reached for him. Are you okay? Yeah, just my back. Carrying someone for half a mile is harder than I thought. He tried to laugh, but I could see he was in pain. I might need a few minutes. We need to call for help. Real help. No, I can keep going. Miles, stop. You're hurt. I'm hurt. We're not making it down this mountain by ourselves. I pulled out my phone, grateful we were high enough for service, and dialed 911. While we waited for search and rescue, I called Derek. He answered on the first ring. Finally decided to check in. We're calling search and rescue. Miles hurt his back trying to carry me down. Of course he did. Playing hero as usual. The lack of concern in Derek's voice made something crack inside me. He hurt himself trying to help me because I'm injured and alone on a mountain. The least you could do is pretend to care. I do care. I just don't appreciate you being alone on a mountain with another man in the first place. I wouldn't be alone with Miles if you'd ever actually show up for me. The words came out louder than I intended. If you'd come to even one wedding appointment, If you'd acted like you wanted to marry me instead of like planning our wedding was a chore you couldn't be bothered with. Here we go again. I'm a terrible fiancé because I have a job. No, you're a terrible fiancé because you've canceled on me 15 times in 6 months. Because Miles has been to more wedding appointments than you have. Because when I'm hurt and scared, I didn't even think about calling you first. I called Miles because I knew he'd answer. I knew he'd come. I knew he'd actually be there. The silence on the other end was heavy. If you'd rather be with Miles, then maybe you should. Derek's voice was cold. Maybe I should call off the wedding and save us both the trouble. Maybe you should, I said. And the moment the words were out, I felt something shift. Not panic or regret, but relief. Derek hung up, and I sat there on the dark mountain trail, my phone still in my hand, feeling like I'd just jumped off a cliff. Miles was looking at me with wide eyes. I think I just ended my engagement. The words felt surreal. I think I just called off my wedding. Kira, 3 months before the wedding. 3 months, and I just ended it. I started laughing, and it turned into crying, and Miles pulled me into his arms. I'm sorry, he said into my hair. I shouldn't have said those things. I shouldn't have put that in your head right before your wedding. You didn't put anything in my head that wasn't already there. I pulled back to look at him. I've been making excuses for him for months, maybe longer. I've been telling myself it was normal, that all couples go through this, that wedding planning is stressful for everyone. It shouldn't be this stressful, Miles said gently. It should be exciting. You should be planning the happiest day of your life with someone who's just as excited as you are. Like you were. The question slipped out. At all those appointments, you always seemed excited. Because I was there with you. He said it simply, like it was obvious. Because I'd rather taste cake with you than do anything else. Because hearing you talk about flower arrangements made me happy even though I don't care about flowers. Because he stopped himself. Because I'm an idiot who's in love with someone who's engaged to someone else. The world tilted. What? I'm in love with you. Miles said it calmly, like he was stating a fact. I have been for about a year. Since that Saturday we spent at the farmer's market picking out vegetables for dinner, and you laughed at my terrible attempt at haggling for tomatoes. I knew then, and I've been your backup plan ever since because being your backup was better than not being in your life at all. I couldn't breathe properly. Why didn't you say anything? Because you were engaged. Because you seemed happy. Because I thought maybe if I just stayed close enough, you'd eventually see... He trailed off. See what? That Derek doesn't look at you the way I do. That he doesn't prioritize you the way I do. That you deserve someone who shows up. We sat in the darkness, those words hanging between us, and I thought about the past year, all the times Miles had been there, the wedding appointments where he'd been more opinionated about my choices than Derek ever was, the way he remembered details Derek forgot, the way he made me feel seen in ways I'd been missing. I called you first, I said quietly. What? When I hurt my ankle. My first instinct was to call you, not Derek. I didn't even think about it. I looked at him. What does that mean? I think you know what it means. Before I could respond, I saw lights coming up the trail. Search and rescue had arrived, 2 men with professional medical gear and a stretcher. They checked us both over, put a proper splint on my ankle, and declared Miles had strained his back but nothing serious. You're lucky, one of them said. This could have been a lot worse. They loaded me onto the stretcher and helped Miles walk down. The whole time, I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said, about being in love with me, about me marrying the wrong person, about deserving someone who shows up. At the trailhead, there was an ambulance waiting. Derek's car was there too, and he was leaning against it, looking at his phone. He looked up when we emerged from the trail, and his eyes immediately went to Miles, who was walking behind my stretcher. You okay? Derek asked me, but he was still looking at Miles. Sprained ankle. Miles hurt his back trying to carry me down. How noble. The sarcasm in Derek's voice made the paramedics exchange glances. Sir, we need to take her to the hospital to get x-rays, one of them said. I can follow in my car, Derek said. I'm riding with her, Miles said at the same time. Derek and Miles stared at each other, and I could feel the tension crackling between them. I'm her fiancé, Derek said. Are you? Miles asked. Because she told me you might have called off the wedding. Derek's face flushed. That's between me and Kira. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, you're the only one who seems unclear about what's happening here. The paramedics were looking increasingly uncomfortable. Gentlemen, we really need to go, one said. I made a decision. Miles rides with me. Derek, you can follow if you want. Derek looked like I'd slapped him. You're choosing him over me? I'm choosing the person who's actually been there for me. My voice was steady despite my racing heart. I'm choosing the person who showed up. Derek stared at me for a long moment, then got in his car and drove away. No argument, no fight, just left. The ride to the hospital was quiet. Miles sat in the ambulance holding my hand, and neither of us acknowledged what we were doing. At the hospital, x-rays showed a bad sprain but no fracture. Miles's back was strained but would heal with rest. We ended up in adjacent exam rooms, and I could hear him talking to his doctor through the thin curtain. You're lucky, his doctor was saying. A few more minutes carrying that weight and you could have done serious damage. It was worth it, Miles said, and even through the curtain, I could hear the certainty in his voice. My doctor finished wrapping my ankle and gave me crutches. You'll need to stay off it for at least 2 weeks. Ice, elevation, compression. The nurse will give you care instructions. When they opened my curtain, Miles was already waiting, leaning on the nurse's station. He had a back brace on and was holding a prescription bag. "Hey," he said. "Hey." We stood there in the fluorescent hospital lights and everything felt surreal. "I should call Derek," I said. "Should you?" "We need to talk. To officially, I can't just leave things like that." "Okay." Miles shifted his weight, wincing slightly. "Do you want me to wait, or will you take me home?" "I don't think I can drive with this ankle." "Of course." The drive to my apartment was quiet. Miles's car smelled like the cedar air freshener he always used, familiar and comforting. When we got to my building, he helped me up the stairs, patient with my crutches and slow pace. At my door, I turned to him. "Do you want to come in?" I probably shouldn't, but he didn't move away. "Miles, what you said on the mountain, did you mean it?" "Every word." "How long have you been planning to tell me?" "I wasn't planning to tell you at all. I was planning to be your friend, to be there for you, and to watch you marry someone else because that's what you wanted." He looked at me with those eyes that apparently had been seeing me differently all along. "But then you got hurt, and Derek wasn't there, and I carried you down a mountain, and I thought, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep being her backup plan when I want to be her first choice." "What if you already are?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. Miles went very still. "What? My first choice? What if you already are and I was just too stupid to see it?" I was crying now, frustrated tears. What if I've been planning a wedding to the wrong person while my actual person has been there all along, tasting cakes and auditioning string quartets and pretending to care about flower arrangements? "I wasn't pretending to care," Miles said softly. "I cared because they mattered to you. See? That. Right there, that's what I'm talking about." I gestured at him with my crutch. "Derek never cared about those things. He never asked about my day or remembered details or showed up when I needed him. But you did. You always did. And I just accepted it as friendship because I was too blind to see that friends don't look at each other the way you look at me. How do I look at you? Like I'm the only person in the room? Like every word I say matters? Like you'd carry me down a mountain even if it meant hurting yourself?" My voice cracked. "Like you love me." "I do love you." He said it simply. "Certainly. I love you so much that I became your backup plan just to be near you. I love you enough that I helped you plan a wedding to someone else because I thought that's what would make you happy. I love you enough that I'm standing here with a strained back and a broken heart, and I'd do it all again tomorrow." I dropped my crutch and grabbed his shirt, pulling him toward me. "What if I don't want you to be my backup plan anymore? Kira, what if I want you to be my first choice? My only choice? You're engaged. You're emotional. You're on pain medication. I'm clarity." I looked up at him. For the first time in months, I'm actually seeing clearly. And I'm seeing that I almost married the wrong person because I was too scared to admit I had feelings for my best friend. "You have feelings for me?" "I must. Otherwise, why would I call you first? Why would every good thing that happens make me want to tell you about it? Why would planning my wedding feel more like planning something with you than planning something for Derek?" Miles's hands came up to cup my face, his thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized were falling. "You need to be sure about this. You need to think about what you're saying." "I am sure. I'm more sure about this than I've been about anything in the past year." I reached up to cover his hands with mine. "I'm sure that you're the person I want to call when I'm scared. I'm sure that you're the person who actually knows me. I'm sure that somewhere along the way, my backup plan became my first choice and I was just too stubborn to admit it." "When?" he asked quietly. "When did you know?" I thought about it. "Remember that Saturday, 3 weeks ago? We were at the bakery for the cake tasting and the baker asked if we wanted to try the champagne flavor. Derek had canceled again and you'd stepped in like always. I remember. You got frosting on your nose. You wiped it off. And the baker said we made a lovely couple and I didn't correct her. I should have, but I didn't. I just smiled and let her think we were together and it felt right." I met his eyes. That's when I knew. I just wasn't brave enough to admit it yet. Miles leaned his forehead against mine, careful not to make me lose my balance. "What do we do now?" "Now I officially end things with Derek. I cancel a wedding. I probably lose a lot of deposits and make my mother very upset." I smiled despite the tears. "And then I figure out how to start over with my backup plan. I don't want to be your backup plan. What do you want to be? Your first choice, your only choice. The person you call when you're happy or sad or scared or bored." He kissed my forehead gently. "The person who gets to love you the way you deserve to be loved. I think I can arrange that." We stood there in my apartment hallway, and for the first time in months, everything felt right. Not easy, but right. The next morning, I called Derek. He answered on the 4th ring, his voice cold. "What?" "We need to talk about the wedding." "What wedding?" I thought we were done. "We are," I said, and saying it out loud felt like freedom. "But we need to figure out logistics. Cancellations, deposits, telling people. Tell people whatever you want. Tell them you left me for your backup plan. Tell them I wasn't good enough. Tell them whatever makes you feel better about what you're doing." The bitterness in his voice was sharp. "Derek, that's not fair. What's not fair is spending a year planning a wedding with someone who was in love with someone else the whole time." I stopped because maybe I had been. Maybe I'd been falling for Miles while telling myself it was just friendship. "You're right. That wasn't fair to you. You deserved better than that." Derek was quiet for a moment. "Did you really not see it?" How he looked at you. No, I really didn't. I thought we were just friends. Everyone else saw it. Your mom, your sister, my friends, everyone saw that Miles was in love with you except you. He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I kept thinking if I just gave you enough time, you'd realize what you had with me and stop spending so much time with him. But you never did. You just kept inviting him to everything, kept calling him first, kept choosing him over and over while telling yourself it didn't mean anything. The truth in his words stung. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't see what was happening. I'm sorry I wasted your time. Yeah, me too. Derek hung up. I sat on my couch, my ankle elevated, my phone in my hand, feeling the weight of what I'd done. I'd ended an engagement 3 months before my wedding. I'd hurt someone I'd cared about. I'd turned my entire life upside down. My phone buzzed with a text from Miles. How did it go? It's officially over. He's hurt and angry, and he has every right to be. Want me to come over? I looked at that text, at the simple offer to be there, and felt my chest tighten. Yes, please. He was there in 20 minutes. He let himself in with the spare key I'd given him months ago, carrying coffee and bagels. Figured you might not have eaten. You know me too well. I've been paying attention for a year. He set the food down and sat beside me on the couch. How are you feeling? Overwhelmed? Guilty? Relieved? Scared? I picked at my bagel. I just called off my wedding. My mom is going to kill me. Your mom loves you. She'll understand. Will she? I'm not sure I understand. I looked at him. What am I doing, Miles? I'm throwing away a relationship and a wedding and all these plans because of feelings I didn't even acknowledge until yesterday. You're being brave. You're choosing what you actually want instead of what you think you should want. What if I'm wrong? What if this is just wedding stress and cold feet and I'm making a huge mistake? Miles took my hand. Then we'll figure it out. But Kira, I don't think you're wrong. I think you've been feeling this for a while and we're just too scared to admit it because it was easier to keep things the way they were. I'm terrified, I admitted. I'm terrified that this will ruin our friendship, that we'll try this and it won't work and I'll lose you completely. We won't lose each other. Even if this doesn't work, even if we try and fail, we won't lose what we have. How can you be so sure? Because I've loved you through all your relationships. I've been your friend through every breakup and every heartbreak. I'm not going anywhere, no matter what happens. He squeezed my hand. But I don't think this is going to fail. I think we're going to be amazing together because we already are. We spent the day together, making phone calls to cancel vendors, drafting messages to send to wedding guests, figuring out the logistics of ending an engagement. My mom called around 3, and I let it go to voicemail because I wasn't ready for that conversation yet. You're going to have to talk to her eventually, Miles said. I know, just not today. My phone buzzed with a text from Jasmine, my maid of honor. Your mom just called me freaking out. Said you called off the wedding? Call me immediately. Guess my mom called her, I said, showing Miles the text. Word travels fast. I called Jasmine and she answered shrieking. What is happening? Your mom said you called off the wedding. I did. Why? What happened? Did Derek do something? No, Derek didn't do anything. That was kind of the problem. I explained everything. The hiking trip, the injury, Miles carrying me down the mountain, the fight with Derek, the confession. Wait, Miles loves you? Jasmine's voice got quieter. Miles has been in love with you this whole time? Apparently. Oh my god, that makes so much sense. What? Kira, he's been at every wedding appointment, every single one. I thought it was weird that you kept bringing him, but I figured you needed moral support since Derek was never there. But now, she trailed off. He was there because he's in love with you. And you were inviting him because I have feelings for him, I finished. When did you figure that out? Yesterday, on the mountain. When I realized I called him first and Derek wasn't even my second choice, he was just an afterthought. I felt tears starting again. I'm a terrible person. You're not a terrible person. You're someone who almost made a mistake and caught it in time. Jasmine was using her therapist voice, the one she used when her clients needed reassurance. So what happens now? Now I cancel a wedding and figure out how to tell everyone I'm in love with my best friend instead. Your mom is going to lose her mind. I know. But also, Jasmine continued, she's been telling me for months that you and Derek don't seem right together. She never said anything to you because she didn't want to interfere, but she's had concerns. Really? Really? She kept saying you seemed more excited about wedding appointments with Miles than with Derek. She thought maybe you were just nervous about getting married, but now it makes sense, I finished. That evening, I finally called my mom. She answered immediately. Kira Marie, what is going on? I called off the wedding. I gathered that from your father's panic attack. What I need to know is why. I explained everything, and my mom listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Are you in love with Miles? I think so. I mean, yes. Yes, I am. How long have you been in love with him? I don't know. Maybe a year, maybe longer. I didn't let myself see it because I was engaged to Derek. And now I'm not engaged to Derek, and I'm terrified because I've turned my entire life upside down for feelings I'm still trying to understand. My mom sighed. Do you want to know what I think? I'm not sure, but tell me anyway. I think you and Derek were never quite right. I think you settled because he was stable and successful, and on paper, he seemed like the perfect choice. But you were never yourself around him. Not the way you are with Miles. You noticed that? Honey, everyone noticed. We all saw how you lit up when Miles walked into a room. We saw how you looked for him first when you had news to share. We saw how he looked at you like you hung the moon. Why didn't anyone say anything? Because you have to figure these things out yourself. We could have told you, but you weren't ready to hear it. You needed to see it on your own. She paused. I'm just glad you saw it before the wedding instead of after. You're not mad? I'm relieved. I've been worried about you for months. You seemed anxious and stressed and not happy, which is the opposite of how you should feel before your wedding. She laughed softly. Besides, I always liked Miles better anyway. That made me laugh through my tears. You did? Of course. He's kind. He's attentive. He actually listens when you talk. And he looks at you like you're the most important person in his world. That's how your father looks at me. That's how it's supposed to be. Over the next week, I told everyone. My sister, who said, finally, and revealed she'd had a bet with her husband about how long it would take me to figure out I was in love with Miles. My friends, who had various reactions ranging from, I knew it, to about time, to, wait, you didn't know. My work colleagues, who'd apparently all been talking about how Miles and I seemed like a couple whenever he picked me up for lunch. Apparently, I'd been the last person to see what everyone else had been seeing for months. Derek and I met for coffee a week after I'd officially called off the wedding. He looked tired, and there was something in his expression I couldn't quite read. I've been thinking, he said after we'd sat down, about what you said, about me not showing up. Derek, let me finish. You were right. I didn't show up. I used work as an excuse, but the truth is I didn't prioritize you. I thought as long as we were engaged, as long as we were moving toward the wedding, that was enough. But it wasn't. I didn't know what to say. I'm sorry, Derek continued. I'm sorry I made you feel like you were asking too much. I'm sorry I wasn't the partner you deserved. And I'm sorry it took you falling for someone else for me to see what I was doing wrong. You weren't all wrong, I said. I wasn't all right either. I should have said something instead of just accepting it. Maybe. But I should have noticed. I should have seen that you were pulling away, that you were relying on Miles more than me. He smiled sadly. I should have fought harder to keep you. I don't think fighting would have changed anything. I think we wanted different things. What did you want? Derek asked. Someone who shows up. Someone who's excited to be there. Someone who makes me feel like I'm a priority, not an obligation. Miles does all that. It wasn't a question. Yeah, he does. Derek nodded. I hope it works out for you two. I hope he gives you everything I couldn't. He stood up to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. You two fit in ways we never did. Watching him walk away, I felt sad but not regretful. We'd had something, but it hadn't been enough, and that was okay. 2 weeks after calling off the wedding, after my ankle had healed enough to walk without crutches, Miles took me hiking again. Not the same trail, but an easier one with a beautiful view at the top. We sat on a boulder overlooking the valley, and he handed me a thermos of hot chocolate. Remember when we came here in college? He asked. For that astronomy assignment. We fell asleep and missed the meteor shower we were supposed to photograph. I smiled at the memory. You got a C on that assignment because of me. Worth it. You were using my jacket as a pillow and you looked so peaceful I didn't want to wake you. He was quiet for a moment. That was the first time I thought maybe I was falling for you. But you were dating that guy, Kevin, and I figured I was just being a good friend. Kevin was terrible. He was. But you didn't see it for months because you kept giving him chances. I'm seeing a pattern in my relationship choices, I admitted. I settle for people who don't choose me first. I choose you first, Miles said, turning to look at me. I've been choosing you first for a year. I'll choose you first for as long as you'll let me. That's a big promise. I'm a big fan of keeping promises. He took my hand. So what do you say? Want to try this for real? Not as backup plans or best friends pretending, but actually together? What if it ruins everything? What if it makes everything better? I looked at him, at the hope and fear and love in his eyes, and thought about all the times he'd been there. All the wedding appointments and emergency calls and moments when he'd shown up without question. Okay, I said. Let's try this for real. Miles smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. Yeah. Let's see what happens when my backup plan becomes my first choice. He kissed me there on that boulder, and it felt like coming home. Like every friendship hug and casual touch had been building to this moment. Like we'd been dancing around this for years without admitting it. I love you, I said when we pulled apart. I'm still figuring out exactly what that means for us, but I love you. I love you too. Have for a while now. I know. Everyone knew except me, apparently. You were worth the wait. We sat there watching the sun set over the valley, and I thought about how sometimes the person you're supposed to be with is the one who's been there all along. Sometimes they're the one who shows up at 3 a.m., who helps you plan a wedding to someone else, who carries you down a mountain even when it hurts. Sometimes your backup plan was always meant to be your first choice. You just needed the right moment to see it. 3 months later, on what would have been my wedding day to Derek, Miles and I had a picnic in the park. Nothing fancy, just sandwiches and fruit, and the chocolate cake we'd tasted together months ago, when I'd thought I was planning a wedding to someone else. Do you regret it? Miles asked. Calling off the wedding? Not even for a second. I leaned against him, his arm around my shoulders. I regret not seeing you sooner. I regret all the time we wasted pretending to be just friends. But I don't regret choosing you. Good. Because I'm choosing you right back. We sat there in the afternoon sun, And I thought about how different my life looked now, how much lighter I felt, how being with Miles felt easy in a way my relationship with Derek never had. "Can I tell you something?" Miles said. "Always. I'm really glad your ankle healed wrong 3 months ago, because if it hadn't, I might never have told you how I felt." "My ankle healed fine." "I know, but you know what I mean. If you hadn't gotten hurt on that mountain, if I hadn't had to carry you down, if Derek hadn't shown his true colors about me being there," he trailed off. "We might have missed our chance." "I don't think we would have missed it," I said. "I think we would have found our way here eventually. Maybe it would have taken longer. Maybe I would have had to actually marry Derek first and realize my mistake. But I think we were always going to end up here. You think we're inevitable? I think you've been my first choice for a long time. I was just too scared to admit it." I turned to look at him. I think the universe kept pushing us together until I finally paid attention. The universe is smart. The universe is slow. I should have figured this out months ago. Better late than never. Miles kissed my forehead. "Besides, now you have a great story about how you almost married the wrong person, but your backup plan saved you." "My backup plan became my first choice," I corrected. Best plot twist ever. We finished our picnic and walked through the park, holding hands like we'd done 100 times as friends. But now it meant something different, something more. People we knew kept stopping to say hi, and everyone commented on how happy I looked. "You're glowing," my former coworker said. "Love looks good on you." "Thanks," I said, squeezing Miles's hand. Love did look good on me. Being with the right person looked good on me. Choosing someone who chose me back looked good on me. That evening, Miles walked me to my apartment door, and I invited him in for coffee. "I should probably go," he said, but he was already following me inside. "I have work tomorrow." "It's Saturday." "You don't work on Saturdays." "Fine, you caught me. I just don't want to overstay my welcome." "Miles, you're my boyfriend. You can't overstay your welcome." The word boyfriend still felt new and exciting. For a year, he'd been my backup plan, my best friend, my emergency contact. Now he was my boyfriend, my first choice, my person. We ended up on my couch, tangled together, talking about everything and nothing. Miles told me about a project at work. I told him about drama with my sister. We made plans for next weekend, discussed getting a cat together, debated whether we should look for a bigger apartment. "Wait," I said, sitting up. "Are we talking about moving in together?" "Maybe?" Miles looked uncertain. "Is that too fast? We've only been officially together for 3 months. We've known each other for a decade. We basically already live together. You're here almost every night anyway." "That's true." He pulled me back against him. "So is that a yes to looking at apartments?" "That's a yes to looking at apartments." I kissed him. "That's a yes to building a life together. That's a yes to everything. Everything is a big promise." "I'm a big fan of keeping promises," I said, echoing his words from months ago. "Besides, you've been my backup plan for everything else. Might as well be my backup plan for choosing apartments, too." "I'm not your backup plan anymore." "No, you're not. You're my first choice. My only choice." I looked at him. "You're the person I want to wake up next to every morning." "I can work with that." 6 months after that day on the mountain, Miles and I moved into a new apartment together. Not too big, not too small, but perfect for us. We had a small housewarming party, and all our friends came, including Jasmine, who brought champagne and made a toast. "To Kira and Miles," she said, raising her glass. "May you always choose each other first." "Always," Miles said, looking at me. "Always," I agreed. Later that night, after everyone had left and we were cleaning up, Miles pulled me close. "I have something for you." He handed me a small, wrapped box. "It's not what you think," he added quickly. "Don't panic." Inside the box was a keychain with a small elephant charm. "Mr. Trunks?" I asked, recognizing my childhood stuffed animal. "I had it made custom. Because you said Mr. Trunks always made you feel safe, and I want you to always feel safe with me." "Miles, I know we're not there yet. I know it's too soon to talk about forever, but I wanted you to know that I'm thinking about forever. That when I imagine my future, you're in every part of it." I kissed him, and the elephant keychain pressed between us, a reminder of childhood comfort and adult promises. "I'm thinking about forever, too." "Yeah?" "Yeah. You've been my backup plan, my best friend, my first choice. Might as well be my forever, too." We stood in our new apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and the beginning of our life together, and I thought about how far we'd come. From that day on the mountain to this moment here, from backup plan to first choice, from best friends to something more. "I love you," Miles said. "I love you too. Always have, always will. Even when I'm annoying, especially when you're annoying." We finished cleaning up and went to bed in our new apartment, in our new life, and I felt more certain about this choice than I'd ever felt about anything. Because sometimes the right person is the one who's been there all along. Sometimes they're the one who shows up, who pays attention, who makes you feel seen and valued and cherished. Sometimes your backup plan was always meant to be your first choice. You just needed to be brave enough to see it. And I was finally seeing clearly. Appreciate you watching this far. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe so you won't miss the next story.